For a while, there has been a gap between what Worlds 6 and 8 are. Well, here it is. Air taxi, if this vehicle is any indication. One thing you'll often see while doing this, of course if you haven't noticed the speed remaining the same, it's always going to be like that. And this is a new one that I've added in, the height. That's been planned for quite a while. You'll often see a lot of islands drifting by. Yep, quite a few islands are around. Of course, hit the springs and you never know what's going to happen. And yes, even this world has the dynamic of... what's a platform level doing there? Well, that's one of the interesting things about this particular world, is you'll see platform levels zipping by. Like, here's a start platform. Basically what you do is you go over here, and a little tricky jump here to get onto there, and you get onto here, you go up here, or you can use this platform over here to get a boost, a speed boost, because what you need to do is you need to use this slope here to jump this rather high area. There are cases like that, but they're actually very rare. They're mostly going to be found in isolated special areas, if you know what I mean. And of course, you just follow the route. Now, you could either head down here, or you can deal with some spikes and a lot of other tricky things and try to go for this nice gold bullion. Oh yeah, and there's even a 2 up in here. Nice. Of course, you really never know. But one thing you can consider is jump from here, fall really fast, land on this to really get a huge amount of horizontal speed, and make a big tricky jump over to here. On here, that would be a shortcut. Of course, you'll have to find some shortcuts if you bother playing difficulty 7 or 8. Or you can take this lower route, grabbing a few sapphires and things along the way, and in this case taking a dip in the water, and of course you'll basically end up in the same area anyway. And here's the goal. And of course there's actually a spring over here to get you up to here. That's, of course, that just gives you an idea on what platform levels would be like in this particular world. But this gives you a good sense of scale. Just look how fast the close parts are moving compared to what you see in the distance. That really gives you a really good sense of scale and depth. And that is actually one of the unique features of the vehicular worlds like this one. Of course, the height being a new one here, if this is any hint. Yeah, right now I have it in feet, because in my area, that's what's primarily used. And here is another example of a platform level. A much closer one. This one's only half the distance. And if you look closely enough, you can actually see some stuff in the water. Of course, there's a sapphire here sitting on a platform that's barely visible. Start platform, goal platform. You never know where that goal platform's going to be. You really never know. Of course, start platform, you just follow here, grab the jewel. Of course, it's usually recommended. But, of course, if they're along the way, and then in difficulty 7 or 8, there really isn't much of a concern. But, of course, you could also go over here, use the spring to get up here, grab this sapphire that's way up here, hop over here or something, and grab this heart if you need it. Of course, here's a little tricky case here. Jump across here, but of course if you get too fast you're going to go so horizontal that you're going to otherwise not make it. And of course you do get a 1-up if you're doing it just right. But yeah, this would be a shortcut because you're bypassing all this. Spike pit here in case you're wondering what this is. Lots of spikes. There's actually ladders here, but they're really hard to make out. Of course, this just gives you another good idea on what levels might be like. Of course, if you want to see those levels and stuff in the distance here, yep, you can see them in the water. There's even a jewel in the water. But yep, it really does give you a sense of scale on what all this stuff in the foreground is really like in the distance. Of course, really high up, it's much easier to see all the islands and stuff going by. And by the way, Doing all the islands here actually resulted in progress in World 8, of all things. Yeah, I'm grabbing all these. Yeah, that's basically, this is what everything looks like in true scale. And yes, that is another air taxi right here. In case you're wondering what that is. But yeah, you can see a lot of islands just drifting by. They're going to be like that all the way through the entire world. I just love bounce. Of course, in this world, the water is actually very dangerous. Not that stuff. This stuff here is fine, if you know what I mean. But, should you fall into the water, the ocean there, extreme speed not required, but still. If you do fall into the water here, it's death. Because you cannot, because otherwise you're going to get left behind from the air taxi itself, if you know what I mean. And, well, of course, if you knew the story, you'd probably get an idea on what I'm kind of referring to, but still, I actually did that deliberately. Of course, it got thrown up because I walked over the edge. Yep, this is what air taxi is like. You can just see everything zipping by. And by the way, with my new computer system, I can actually record 60 frames per second now for the first time. Yes, you're actually watching this 60 frames per second. So that's why it's actually flowing so smoothly. You could see all the motion and stuff very, very well with this, if you know what I mean. What am I doing? Well, if you look closely there, you can see another one of those platform levels. Of course, that one is actually the same as the second, that second one that showed up, except it's so much more distant. It's 8 times more distant, if that's any hint. But yeah, that really does give you a good sense on the sheer scale. Yep, I'm just taking you to the upper reaches of this particular world so you can see what that looks like. I love the way, I love the way this island, bum 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 bum, I love that. The clouds effect is something I've had for a while. I think that's a 192 scale or something, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at my programming. It's the only way I know. 192 scale? Basically, for every 192 pixels you move, that platform is 32 for comparison. So it's 6 times the height of that platform that he's standing on there. And that's basically, that island would move 1 pixel. Yes, I really kicked that thing up there and then some. But this is basically what this world looks like from pretty much the very top. Yeah, it seems like he's slowing down, but that's actually because of the air taxi itself is constantly moving. But if you notice this char.x speed, it gives you a hint that he's not going. Well, it's actually going to the left now. However, because I've done the islands in this world, which are actually present in another world, Centus Reef, if you know what I mean, guess what? I also have progress. Yeah, air taxi, that's what World 7 is. That's the gap between here, that you've probably been wondering on for who knows how long. But I've made progress on here, and I've made a few changes here and there, but really not many. Of course, some of the islands here have also changed some too. How come all of a sudden it got darker? That's actually just one of the special effects in this particular world. Go deeper underwater, naturally it's going to get really dark. Of course, that does need to be addressed, and that odd gap there at the bottom, but of course, I was just demonstrating that. Might as well. It's faster. Of course, this is just testing, but normally not recommended. I just thought I'd show you that otherwise. So, what about those, height and stuff like that? Well, I'm gonna go to the mountains. Of course, you've already seen this one. Really nothing special here, but wow, that height is so much higher compared to everything else that you've otherwise seen. Yeah, I need to address that apparently. But why is that different? It's actually because that is actually based on the elevation or height above sea level, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so this particular spot where the camera is 8,254 feet above sea level. Yeah, it's up there a lot. And one thing you should note is that when you're on steep slopes kind of like these here, I think, not that one, it's a little steeper yet. Notice how he starts slowing down? You get on too steep of a slope and you won't be able to climb it. That's just one thing that you need to note. That's one of, so, the only way you can climb steep slopes more effectively is raising acceleration. It's the only possible way. Of course, now he's at a dead stop. That's also because I'm holding the button. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that. And I'm also considering having farm fields where those lakes and stuff are there. Of course, really get a lot of speed, and that's a different subject, but still, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I need to fix that with the collision detection. But, you're probably wondering, does this game only have certain measurement units available? Like, you've always been seeing feet and miles per hour like crazy with occasional use of coordinate units per frame as per that debug panel, if you know what I mean. However, I can change that. I've actually added that functionality in. I've replaced those particular options, but reading this menu help, you can get a good idea as to what you can expect to see. Yep, those are the kinds of item options you have available. Of course, there's game-specific units, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, I'm going to change the speed to something metric, if you know what I mean. Kilometers per hour. If you're in places that are outside the U.S. and Great Britain, yeah, you should probably know what kilometers per hour means and the such. I do. Of course, I'm in the U.S., but hey, I'm actually kind of used to both systems, if you know what I mean. Yep, bounce still works just the same, no difference. It's just an indication of the changes in speed. So, what about the scientific standard, like meters per second? Well, you can choose that one too if you want. Yeah, it gets really fast. And, of course, there's also game-specific units, like this one here, which is basically the game's back-end units. Notice a match between this and this, essentially. Of course, it might be slightly off because I got a little bit on the horizontal. But notice the close relationship here. Yep, that's the game's back-end units. What does that basically mean? Well, for every frame that goes by... Alright, where is it? Okay, I got 49 and some change coordinate units per frame. So if I advance one full drawing frame, this will move 49 pixels. If you know what I mean. And of course now it's going to about 50, but still. That gives you the idea on the sense of scale there. And of course there's various other things here, like the kilo blocks. There's blocks per second, blocks per frame, but that's basically all of them, in case you're wondering. And of course I have other units available here too, like meters if you want height measured in meters. In case you're more familiar with metrics, you can certainly do that. Pretty high mountains, huh? Everything is actually exactly to scale, if you know what I mean. Okay, come to a dead stop on the horizontal. Of course, if you want other distance, let's see, distance measurement units, like, for example, the game's back-end units, coordinate units. Of course, there is not a match here, because elevation. This is based on elevation. This is based on position within the level. This is essential for finding out where problems are occurring, because I can just check the code and things like that at particular locations as I see necessary. But yeah, that is insanely high for mountains. Well, it's actually really short there. Of course, you can also choose very, very long distance ones, like miles. Yeah, it's over a mile high in elevation. You can also choose kilometers, which you might be more familiar with if you're outside the US. And then, of course, there's the game's back-end units, like kiloblocks. And of course, there's just regular blocks. That just gives you an idea on what kind of options you have available as far as that goes anyway. Of course, the default here. Of course, everything, if you're looking for it, finding out what the default or original settings were, just look for this at the end. This is the default setting. All I gotta do is look for the option that contains that. Of course, there you have it back. Oh well, this video was created by Ulillillia. Thank you for watching.